The financial independence movement keeps on winning. Hi, I'm financial planner Sean Mullaney. Let's discuss. So many of you are familiar with FI or FIRE, financial independence, retire early. The idea is, generally speaking, build up financial assets, maybe it's real estate, so that you have more options in your financial life and you're less reliant on a W-2 job or self-employment or whatever it might be. Okay, that's a broad brush. But one thing I notice is the FIRE movement keeps on winning. And one example of that is tax law changes in the last 5 years. Right? Let's go back to late 2017. It was President Trump and a Republican Congress. They passed something called the TCJA. And what did that do? Well, it did a few things. One thing it did is it increased the standard deduction big time. Second thing it did is it made the tax rates more progressive. So now there's a 10% tax bracket and a 12% tax bracket. And it turns out those two changes were huge wins for the financial independence movement. It set up a situation where you could get to an early retirement and all of a sudden you'd get a very low tax rate. And you could do Roth conversions, manage taxable income, pay very little tax. Really good win for the FIRE movement. Well, okay, let's fast forward in time. We get to 2019 and now it's a split Congress. And what are they doing? They're looking at retirement accounts and they passed the Secure Act and they're playing with retirement accounts. The FIRE movement really leverages off these retirement accounts, Roth IRAs, traditional 401ks and the like. And there was like, wait a minute, they're messing with our retirement accounts. Is that going to hit the FIRE movement? Well, it turns out what they did was they said, okay, no changes to that Roth IRA, no changes to that traditional 401k y'all have been relying on. But you know what we're going to do? We're going to increase the tax burden on the heirs, on the inherited retirement accounts. So yet another W for the FIRE movement. Fast forward to the COVID pandemic, right? What happens there? They do stimulus checks. They do more child tax credits. And all of them are, generally speaking, based on income levels. Well, one of the attributes, one of the features of the FIRE movement is this sort of ability to control taxable income. So it turns out most folks in the FIRE movement qualified for stimulus checks, or if they had children, for some of these child tax credits. So another W for the FIRE movement. Then we get to 2021. Now it's a Democrat president, Democrat Congress. And what do? They say for 2 years, we're going to expand the availability of ACA premium tax credits. What we're going to do is we're going to say, there's that 400% of federal poverty level cliff where you get no premium tax credit. For 2 years, don't worry about it. 2021, 2022, don't worry about it. Well, there are a bunch of folks who are retired early who have these ACA plans, and now their income can go over that 400% of federal poverty level, and they only have a small reduction in the premium tax credit. It saves them thousands of dollars. So another big W for the FIRE movement. And then we get to 2022. They're talking about getting rid of the backdoor Roth IRA and what happens next year to these premium tax credits. And so what do? They pass the Inflation Reduction Act, which first of all said how for 2 years we're going to forget that subsidy cliff, right? That 400% of federal poverty level cliff. Forget it for the next 3 years, 2023, 2024, 2025. So if you have 500%, 600% of federal poverty level as your modified adjusted gross income, don't worry about it. You still get a large premium tax credit. And oh, by the way, that backdoor Roth IRA we were talking about repealing, don't worry about it. We're not going to do that, right? So the FIRE movement keeps stacking these wins, at least when it comes to tax law changes, right? It's always scary. And turns out the FIRE movement wins, not loses. Now, that's not guaranteed to go on forever, but I think there's a bigger observation. Here's the thing. When you gain more control of your financial life, which the FIRE movement encourages, you tend to have a lot more wins when it comes to your own financial life, personal finance, could be tax law changes. I can't help but notice that people who have more and more and more control, more and more and more assets in terms of their financial life tend to win in their financial life. So I think there's a lesson here apart from these tax law changes is, hey, if you want to have more wins in your financial life, you ought to think about FIRE and FIRE principles and adapting some of them into your own personal life. What do you think about the FIRE movement? Let me know in the comments below. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please mash that like button and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you next time.